Last time on Geek in the Warp. A friend and I brought 2 Primarchs. I made a joke saying, well, we could bring both Fulgrim with my Emperor's Children and Magnus with your 1000 Sons. We then took that joke seriously and brought both. A tank exploded in my Demon Prince's face, which then exploded and damaged the Doomsday Arc, the Venom Crawler, my Infractors and my Demon Prince, and we won our first game. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the second part of a 2-part video series about how a friend and I took 2 Primarchs in one army to a tournament. If you haven't seen the first video, make sure to go back and watch that one so you get all the context you need. But other than that, let's just jump straight into game 2. The second mission we would play was called Probe the Line. There were a total of 6 deployment zones, numbered 1 to 6. At the beginning of the game, you had to roll off in which deployment zone you could deploy. In the middle, there were 3 objectives. You could score 5 points at the end of your command phase by controlling objective markers, or at the end of the enemy turn, per neutral or enemy deployment zone, you had at least 1 unit wholly within that was not battle shocked. There once again was the maximum you could score per turn. We were paired against Tom and Christoph from team Brothers of the Septic Cabal, which is a very cool team name, by the way. Tom brought a Plague Legion Chaos Demons list containing a Great Unclean One, 2 Poxbringers leading 10 Plague Bearers each, a Spoilpox Scrivener also leading 10 Plague Bearers, 3 units of 3 Nurglings, and 2 Beasts of Nurgle. Christoph brought a Rubrique Phalanx 1000 Sons list containing 2 Exalted Sorcerers, each leading 10 Rubric Marines. One of them had the Lord of Rubrique enhancement, and 1 Sorcerer in Terminator armor leading 10 Scarab Occult Terminators. A bit of a surprising list, since that's basically 3 units, but Rubric Marines are quite scary when you feel them intense, so not bad as well. Our plan was very simple. We only needed to deploy right next to them and go first. It would be the easiest game in our history of playing, since the damage output from Jojo's and my army would be extremely high with what they brought. So naturally, the dice decided that Jojo would be surrounded, I would be on the complete opposite side of the board, and that we would go second. This was bad. Having essentially half of your army exposed to the enemy in turn 1 is just asking to lose. But luckily, there is an extra rule that you can decide what to put in reserves after determining the deployment zones. I put everything on the board so I could try to rush everything forward to try and stop Tom, who was closest to me, and Jojo put Magnus and the Zangors with bows in reserves. We were still very worried though. All they had to do was wipe Jojo's unit, and that would basically beat the game. And then they didn't. Tom deployed 2 of his Nurglings in the neutral deployment zones to basically score points without much trouble. Turn 1 they drew Marked for Death and Area Denial. We of course chose my strongest units for Marked for Death, and they then killed Zangors to get 2 points. Area Denial was a free 5 points. The issue, however, was that the Terminators were also in Deep Strike, and Tom's army is so slow it couldn't reach Jojo's 1000 Sons even though they deployed right next to each other. So Jojo only lost his Zangors, and his Demon Prince took damage but was alive on 2 wounds. On our turn, we drew Bring It Down and Attempting Target. They declared the middle objective as Attempting Target, but with the scout move and the advance and charge, one of my Infractor units did manage to get there and kill the Plague Bearer and Boxbringers. My other Infractor unit stuck to the side with Fulgrim following them and killed the Nurglings in one of the deployment zones. My Demon Prince and Flawless Blades went to reinforce the objective closest to my deployment zone. Jojo shot the Great Unclean One with both his Vortex Beast and his Demon Prince, and then charged it with the Demon Prince as well, bringing it down to 2 wounds before he himself was killed. Seeing this, we decided to keep Bring It Down, so we would probably score it in turn 2. The score at the end of round 1, 7-5 in their favor. In round 2, Tom and Christoph scored a combined 20 primary points. They drew Attempting Target and Cleanse. They were able to score 2 for Cleanse, but we appointed the middle objective with only my Infractors on it as Attempting Target. They then took the bait and shot the unit first, trying to soften them up. I deliberately didn't use any defensive buffs, and they killed them, making the objective unchargeable, denying them the points for the mission. They also killed the other Infractors and Lord Exultant and managed to wound but not kill the Vortex Beast and Chaos Spawn. Christoph used Deep Strike on his Terminators close to my Demon Prince and split fire, killing 2 of my 3 flawless blades and halving the Demon Prince's health after the charge. Tom used Deep Strike on his Beasts of Nurgle and put them in our deployment zones. In our turn, we scored a combined 10 primary points and drew engage on all fronts. Jojo put Magnus in his own deployment zone since there was still a small enough gap to put him, and brought the Zangors with bows in from strategic reserves close to Christoph's deployment zone. His Vortex Beast killed about half of the unit of Plague Bearers with a Poxbringer, and Magnus ended the Great Unclean One, scoring us Bring It Down. My Demon Prince fell back towards the Beast of Nurgle in my own deployment zone, but he didn't do enough damage, and the Beast of Nurgle fully heals each phase, which is interesting. My remaining flawless blades just kind of died. I honestly don't remember what happened to it. We scored 2 points on engage on all fronts. The score at the end of round 2, 29-21 in their favor. In round 3, Tom and Christoph scored another combined 20 on primary. They drew Secure No Man's Land and Establish Locus. They had 2 objectives at the end of their turn, scoring 5 points on Secure No Man's Land, and the Beast of Nurgle in one of our deployment zone did Establish Locus, so that was another 4 points. They killed my Demon Prince and there wasn't much else to say about their turn, honestly. We scored only 5 primary points. We funnily enough also drew Secure No Man's Land and Establish Locus. I flew Fulgrim into the objective at the top of the table, so we scored Secure No Man's Land for 2 points after killing the unit of Plague Bearers with the Spoilpox together with Magnus, and Jojo moved his Zangors with bows into Christoph's deployment zone to score Establish Locus for 4 points and killed the last Plague Bearers. But the Poxbringer lived. The score at the end of round 3, 58-32 in their favor. At the start of round 4, Tom and Christoph maxed out in primary, and at this point Jojo and I thought we lost the game. They drew Display of Might and engaged on all fronts. They had units present in every table corner and managed to just kill Fulgrim, scoring 4 points for each and making me tabled. In our turn 4, we drew Assassination and Behind Enemy Lines. Jojo was able to kill the Poxbringer and the last remaining unit of Rubric Marines in our turn 4 by getting an 8-inch charge off with Magnus, which, since we both were in the deployment zone, was a great play. So we scored both secondaries. At the beginning of round 5, the score was 76-50 in their favor. There was basically no hope for us. We would have to score a monumental amount of points, and Tom and Christoph would have to score 0. Tom and Christoph's turn started. They drew Bring It Down and Storm Hostile Objective. There was no way they would score Storm Hostile Objective, since the only objective under our control was stickied at the other side of the board with no units of theirs inside. All they had to do was kill the Vortex Beast or Magnus with the Terminators, scoring Bring It Down, and all would be over. And that's where they made the biggest mistake of the game. Their thought process was to fall back away from the objective to try and deny us the secondaries where we had to kill units, and they actually did score 0 points. But they left Magnus and the Vortex Beast free to go wherever they wanted. Now remember what I said at the beginning of this game? You could score 5 points at the end of your command phase by controlling objective markers, or at the end of the enemy turn, per neutral or enemy deployment zone you had at least 1 unit wholly within that was not battle shocked. You score points for standing in deployment zones at the end of the enemy's turn. So, at the end of their turn, since we were in deployment zones, we scored 10 primary points before our turn even started, so all Jojo had to do was move his last 2 units onto the remaining objective markers and score 2 great secondaries. Since Warhammer 40,000 has this nice thing where you score primary points at the end of the game if you went second. And Zinch was Zinching because we drew Storm Hostile Objective and Display of Might, which we managed to score by re-rolling an advance roll with Magnus from a 2 to a 6. This gave us a whopping 33 points. After adding the points for the paint jobs, the result was 86-93 in our favor. That meant that with a combined 192 out of 200 points, we also did win the tournament. A massive thank you to Jojo, who pulled a clutch and a half in the end and who also was just a great teammate. But also thank you Tom and Christophe for being such awesome players. I hope to see you again in future events. A massive thank you to the Tin Soldiers of Antwerp for organizing the event, and thank you viewer for watching these videos. Let me know what you think down below, and if you would like to see more of my content, make sure to like and subscribe. I certainly had a blast making these, and I will see you in the next one.